For decades, the Federal Bureau of Investigation has stood as the iron wall against the most complex, the most ruthless, the most unimaginable threats to peace and justice. Its agents, analysts, and scientists are renowned for their unwavering tenacity, their unparalleled resources, and their ability to dissect the most intricate webs of deceit. They have hunted down masterminds, unraveled conspiracies that stretched across continents, and brought closure to countless tragedies. They are, in essence, the last resort when all other avenues have failed. But what happens when they are even brought to their knees? What occurs when a crime so perfectly executed, so utterly without a traceable flaw, lands on their most secure desks, stares them down, and simply refuses to yield? Imagine a challenge that doesn't just test their limits, but shatters them. A case that isn't merely difficult, but genuinely impossible. An adversary or perhaps a circumstance that operates with such flawless precision, such a complete disregard for leaving even the smallest thread of evidence, that it rips apart the very fabric of their understanding. This isn't just about a puzzle left unsolved. It's about a deep-seated apprehension. It's about the gnawing feeling of a profound failure that lingers, an unseen presence within the very halls of power. It's about the unsettling knowledge that something or someone walked away completely, leaving behind only echoes and the chill of the absolute unknown. Tonight, we peel back the layers of a story that reaches into the deepest corners of the FBI's collective memory. We confront the spectral presence of a single file, marked with an asterisk of persistent doubt, a testament to an enduring enigma. This is more than a cold case, it is a profound wound that has never healed. It is the truth behind the very phrase, the case that haunts the FBI to this day. To truly understand the depth of this enduring enigma, we must first travel back, not to a battlefield or a shadowy underworld, but to a place of profound tranquility. Our story begins in the autumn of 1978, in the small, charming coastal community of Havenwood, Maine, a town of weathered clapboard houses, close-knit families, and the rhythmic comfort of the Atlantic tide. Life there moved at a different cadence, one marked by predictable seasons and neighborly familiarity. Within this peaceful tableau lived Dr. Ilara Vance. Ilara was not just a resident, she was a jewel in Havenwood's quiet crown. At merely 32 years old, she was a brilliant astrophysicist, already celebrated in academic circles for her groundbreaking work on stellar nurseries and the formation of distant galaxies. Her mind was a universe unto itself, always reaching, always questioning. But more than her intellect, Ilara was known for her radiant spirit, her infectious laugh, her passion for gardening, and her deep devotion to her elderly parents, whose small cottage she visited every evening. She was, in every sense, a woman whose future seemed as boundless and bright as the cosmos she studied. On the evening of October 17, 1978, Ilara followed her usual routine. She spent a warm, early autumn evening at her parents' home, discussing the day's discoveries, helping her mother tend to the late-season roses, and sharing a quiet dinner. Her father walked her out to her car, a modest blue sedan, around 9:30 p.m. They exchanged a wave and a promise to meet for breakfast. Ilara's drive home was a mere 7 minutes, a familiar journey along the winding coastal road, the ocean breeze carrying the scent of salt and pine. She was expected at the local observatory early the next morning, eager to collect data from a rare celestial event. This was Ilara's life, predictable, purposeful, full of light. And it was at precisely this juncture, in the quiet predictability of a Tuesday night in Havenwood, that the world, as Ilara Vance knew it, simply ceased to exist. The morning of October 18th broke with an unusual quiet. Ilara didn't arrive at the observatory. Her colleagues, initially thinking she might have overslept, called her cottage. No answer. A quick check with her parents confirmed she hadn't returned there either. A knot began to form in the pit of her father's stomach. This was not like Ilara. By midday, concern had given way to alarm. local police were notified. The first officers dispatched to Alara's charming, secluded cottage found her car meticulously parked in its driveway. The front door was unlocked. Inside, everything was undisturbed. Her bed was neatly made. Her scientific journal stacked precisely on her desk. The only anomaly: her beloved telescope, usually set up for observation, lay disassembled in its case, as if she had been preparing it for transport, but never finished. The tranquil veneer of Havenwood shattered. What began as a local missing person report quickly escalated into a frantic, comprehensive search. Every resident, every fisherman, every volunteer scoured the woods, the beaches, the treacherous cliffs along the coastline. Helicopters crisscrossed the sky, their rotors a mournful thrum against the backdrop of desperate shouts. News crews, drawn by the disappearance of a prominent scientist, descended upon the quiet town, their cameras capturing the raw anguish etched on the faces of Alara's parents, the bewildered grief of her colleagues. Initially, theories were simple, almost dismissive. Perhaps Alara, overwhelmed by her groundbreaking research, had simply needed to escape for a few days, a quiet retreat to clear her brilliant mind. Some speculated she might have had a sudden secret lover and simply left. Others whispered of a tragic accident along the winding coastal roads, despite no evidence of a crash. The most generous assumptions clung to the hope that she had simply chosen to vanish. A voluntary departure. But as the days stretched into a week and then into two, as every avenue of simple explanation was exhausted, a far more unsettling realization began to dawn. Alara Vance had not chosen to leave. She had been taken. Or, even more chillingly, she had simply evaporated. And that was when Havenwood, and eventually the nation, understood that this was no ordinary missing person case. This was a void, a sudden, inexplicable absence that defied every logical attempt to fill it. The local police, dedicated as they were, quickly found themselves overwhelmed. This wasn't a standard missing person investigation, nor a typical homicide. There was no body, no immediate indication of violence, yet an undeniable sense of wrongness permeated every aspect of Alara Vance's disappearance. It was a vacuum growing larger with each passing hour. The scope, the baffling lack of any substantial lead, and the potential implications of a prominent scientist vanishing without a trace soon necessitated a call to a higher authority. Within 72 hours of Alara being reported missing, the FBI was formally brought into the case. Special Agent Douglas Hayes, a man whose career was defined by his meticulous attention to detail and an almost uncanny ability to see patterns in chaos, was assigned to lead the federal investigation. His initial visit to Alara's cottage, the very last place she was known to have been, became a defining moment. He expected to find something amiss, some subtle disruption that spoke of a struggle, a forced entry, or even a hurried departure. Instead, what greeted him was an almost unsettling tableau of perfect order. The cottage was a testament to Alara's precise nature. Every cushion on the sofa was plumped. Books were neatly aligned on shelves. In her small, efficient kitchen, a single, clean coffee mug sat drying on a rack, as if she had just finished her morning brew, not vanished the night before. Her personal effects purse, wallet, keys were all accounted for, sitting on a small table by the door. Her eyeglasses rested beside a partially read novel on her nightstand. Even the dust on the surfaces seemed untouched. There was no sign of a forced entry, no shattered window, no pried open lock. The security on the property, while not high-tech, was intact. Nothing appeared to have been taken, and nothing appeared to have been disturbed. It was a crime scene defined by its utter absence of clues. No fingerprints belonging to an unknown individual. No foreign fibers. No displaced objects. It was a blank slate, an empty canvas where a violent, chaotic act should have been painted. This pristine emptiness, paradoxically, was the most unsettling detail of all. It spoke not of a spontaneous event, but of a calculated, almost surgical removal. Early in the investigation, the FBI, in conjunction with local law enforcement, embarked on a colossal effort. Agent Hayes organized extensive grid searches, covering every square inch of the surrounding wilderness, the coastal bluffs, even the treacherous waters offshore. Every acquaintance, every colleague, every distant relative of Ilara Vance was interviewed, often multiple times. Thousands of leads poured in: anonymous phone calls, reported sightings from hundreds of miles away, speculative theories offered by concerned citizens. Each one had to be meticulously followed, documented, and eventually ruled out. One such tip, seemingly promising, described a dark sedan seen speeding away from the Havenwood area in the early hours of October 18th. This information sent agents on a multi-state pursuit, checking hotel registries, gas station receipts, and toll booth records. For 3 days it felt as though they were on the cusp of a breakthrough, only to discover the vehicle belonged to a couple of tourists who had indeed been rushing home due to a family emergency. Another witness claimed to have seen Ilara at a roadside diner in New Hampshire, alive and seemingly well, only for a photo lineup to prove the witness had confused Ilara with someone who merely shared a similar hairstyle. The air thickened with these false hopes, each leading to crushing disappointment, further blurring the path forward. Compounding the difficulty were the subtle inconsistencies in witness accounts. Ilara's parents swore she was wearing a light blue cardigan when she left their home. Her next-door neighbor, who claimed to have seen her car pass her driveway a few minutes later, insisted she was wearing a dark jacket. These might seem like minor details, easily dismissed, but in an investigation already starving for concrete facts, every conflicting piece of information became another knot in an already Gordian tangle. As weeks turned into a month, the formidable resources of the FBI were fully engaged, yet the case remained stubbornly resistant to resolution. Agent Hayes, a man not easily discouraged, found himself facing a growing sense of professional unease. He and his teams had exhausted every conventional avenue. They had consulted with behavioral scientists, analyzed missing person statistics, and meticulously re-examined the cottage multiple times. Yet, the central, unnerving truth persisted. Ilara Vance had simply vanished, leaving behind a perfectly preserved home, a bewildered community, and not a single, tangible shred of evidence pointing to who, or what, had taken her. For an agency built on the principle of finding answers, of connecting the dots, this case presented a profound and unprecedented challenge. It was a vacuum of information, a black hole of inquiry where traditional methods simply dissolved. The initial wave of frantic activity gave way to a chilling stillness. The leads stopped coming. The search efforts tapered off. The first major dead end had been reached, and it was at this juncture, early in its long, unresolved history, that the disappearance of Ilara Vance began its slow, relentless process of embedding itself into the collective consciousness of the FBI, transforming from a simple missing person case into something far more enduring, far more unsettling. For nearly 5 years, the case of Ilara Vance's disappearance lay dormant, classified as a cold file within the FBI's extensive archives. Agent Hayes, now promoted and handling other pressing investigations, would still find himself glancing at the Vance file number, a small, persistent ache of professional incompletion. The initial frenzy had long since passed, replaced by a quiet, resigned acceptance among the public. But then, on a Tuesday morning in April of 1983, a small, unassuming envelope arrived at the FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. It bore no return address, just a neat, block-lettered postmark from a remote town in rural Nebraska. Inside was a single, plain postcard. On one side, a faded photograph of a generic prairie landscape. On the other, scrawled in an unfamiliar, looping hand, were just 4 words. She saw the stars. It was signed simply, "The Watcher." This cryptic message, seemingly innocuous to an outsider, sent a jolt through the cold case unit. No details of Ilara Vance's specific profession, her passion for astrophysics, had ever been widely publicized. How could an anonymous sender, hundreds of miles away, know such a specific, intimate detail? This single postcard reignited the fading embers of the investigation, pushing Ilara's file back onto active desks. It was the first substantial, unsolicited lead in half a decade, and it forced the FBI to reevaluate everything. Several major theories began to solidify within the FBI's new task force. The most prominent, let's call it the abduction and surveillance theory, proposed that Ilara was taken by someone who had been observing her, someone with an intimate knowledge of her life and routine, and perhaps even her professional work. The postcard under this theory was a taunt, a demonstration of the perpetrator's reach and awareness. The lack of struggle at the cottage suggested either an element of surprise or that Ilara knew her captor. The neatly disassembled telescope became a chilling detail, perhaps a kidnapper planning to move her research equipment or a message left by Ilara herself, a silent plea. However, this theory struggled with a critical absence. No ransom demands ever followed, no communication beyond that single enigmatic postcard. If it was an abduction, what was the motive, and why the complete silence afterward? Then there was the secret life theory. This posited that Ilara, for reasons unknown, had meticulously planned her own disappearance. Her perfect, undisturbed cottage, the lack of any struggle, the very absence of evidence, could all be interpreted as intentional. The disassembled telescope, rather than a captor's detail, could have been Ilara preparing to transport her life's work to a new identity, a new existence. But why? What hidden conflict, what unrevealed connection, could drive a woman of such professional promise and deep family ties to abandon everything without a word? And if she truly intended to vanish, why send a postcard hinting at her past, drawing attention back to herself years later? Both theories presented compelling fragments of understanding, yet each dissolved into contradiction when faced with the full, unnerving picture. As the Watcher postcard reinvigorated the case, investigators focused on individuals who might have had an unusual connection to Ilara. One such person was a recluse named Arthur Finch. Finch, a former naval cartographer with a documented history of erratic behavior, lived in the very Nebraska town from which the postcard was postmarked. He had a peculiar fascination with celestial mechanics, having written numerous, often incoherent, letters to astronomy journals. Finch was brought in for extensive questioning. He had no alibi for October 1978, but his mental state made any coherent confession impossible, and crucially, his handwriting did not match that on the postcard. His theories on Ilara's disappearance were fantastical, almost illusionary. Eventually, without any concrete linkage to Havenwood or direct evidence, Arthur Finch was reluctantly ruled out as a credible suspect, becoming another frustrating dead end. A person of interest who led nowhere. Another individual who came under intense scrutiny was Dr. Malcolm Thorne, a brilliant, but intensely competitive, colleague of Ilara's from a rival institution. Thorne had publicly criticized some of Ilara's early papers, though their academic rivalry was considered standard. He was known for his sharp intellect and an almost obsessive focus on his own career advancement. When questioned, Thorne provided a verifiable alibi for the night of Ilara's disappearance, attending a conference in California. Despite his somewhat abrasive personality and an apparent jealousy of Ilara's rapidly ascending career, there was simply no evidence, no connection, no window of opportunity that could place him in Havenwood. He remained a person of interest only in the abstract sense, adding to the list of could-be's without proof. The FBI's Behavioral Science Unit developed several profiles of a potential perpetrator. Some suggested a highly intelligent, meticulous individual, possibly with a background in science or surveillance, given the precise nature of the disappearance and the cryptic postcard. Others leaned towards a loner, an obsessive fan of Ilara's work who escalated into something far more extreme. However, the profiles frequently contradicted each other, often based on the minimal and sometimes conflicting information available. Was this a calculated abduction by a brilliant mind, or the impulsive act of a deeply disturbed individual who then simply evaporated? The psychological landscape of the case was as elusive as the physical evidence. What truly cemented this case as an enduring haunting within the Bureau was not just the lack of evidence, but the presence of an impossible clue. Tucked away in a compartment within Ilara's disassembled telescope, a place only an experienced astronomer would think to look, agents discovered a small, meticulously folded piece of paper. On it was a series of symbols, a sequence of geometric shapes, Greek letters, and numerical notations that bore no resemblance to any known language, code, or scientific formula. The FBI's top cryptographers, even those who routinely deciphered hostile intelligence communications, labored over it for months. They consulted with linguists, mathematicians, and even ancient history scholars. It was not a cipher, they concluded, at least not in any conventional sense. It defied all known patterns. It was a message without a key, a riddle seemingly designed to be utterly insoluble. It was a clue that shouldn't exist. A perfect piece of non-information, adding another layer to the profound emptiness of the case. Agent Hayes, now a seasoned veteran, would later recount how this case demanded thousands of hours from his team, consumed countless resources, and pulled agents away from their families for weeks on end. They pursued leads that crisscrossed the continent, interviewed thousands of people, and analyzed every conceivable scenario. Yet, for all their relentless effort, for all their collective brilliance, the case remained a fortress, utterly impervious to their assault. Each new piece of information, like the postcard or the impossible symbols, instead of providing answers, only deepened the questions, adding new dimensions to the impenetrable wall of mystery. This enduring failure wasn't just a mark on a statistical ledger for the FBI, it was a profound internal struggle. Agent Hayes and countless others who worked on the Vance case speak of it with a mix of awe and profound frustration. It challenged their core belief system, the conviction that every crime leaves a trace, that every perpetrator makes a mistake. This case presented no mistake, no trace. It forced them to confront the possibility of perfect execution of an unknown entity capable of operating entirely outside their investigative framework. It was a direct affront to their methods, their training, their very identity. How could the premier law enforcement agency in the world be so utterly helpless against a single silent disappearance? External criminologists and cold case analysts who have studied the Vance file echo this sentiment. Dr. Evelyn Redd, a renowned behavioral psychologist, once stated in an interview, the Alara Vance case isn't just a puzzle, it's a wound. It speaks to the terror of the unknown, the idea that someone can simply cease to be and leave behind nothing but an intellectual vacuum that no amount of analysis can fill. It exposes the limits of human understanding, the boundaries where conventional detection methods simply break down. And so we must ask, if the cottage was undisturbed and Alara left no sign of struggle, was she even there when it happened? If the postcard was a taunt, why did it contain only an obscure personal detail and no demand? And if the coded symbols were meant to be a clue, a last desperate message, then for whom was it intended, and why has no one, to this day, been able to decipher its meaning? These are the questions that persist, the questions that resonate in the quiet halls of the FBI, maintaining the enduring, chilling presence of a case that refuses to be forgotten. The initial renewed efforts in the mid-80s, spurred by the Watcher postcard, eventually waned. Without further communication or any definitive breakthroughs, the case of Alara Vance once again retreated into the realm of cold files. But its designation as such was always administrative, never truly reflecting the persistent intellectual itch it caused within the Bureau. As the years turned into decades and the world itself transformed, so too did the tools of investigation. The turn of the millennium brought revolutionary advancements in forensic science. DNA analysis, once a nascent field, evolved into a powerful, almost infallible identifier. Digital databases allowed for cross-referencing of patterns and information that were unimaginable in 1978. New technologies could lift latent fingerprints from surfaces previously thought impossible. With each new innovation, there was a glimmer of hope. Surely these modern marvels could break the unbreakable code of Alara Vance's disappearance. The file was revisited multiple times, particularly by specialized cold case units whose sole purpose was to re-examine dormant investigations through a contemporary lens. They meticulously rescanned the cottage for microscopic DNA, reanalyzed every fiber, every Vanov particle, every faint impression. They fed the mysterious coded message into supercomputers, hoping for a computational revelation. Yet, each attempt met the same unyielding silence. The crucial evidence from 1978, what little there was, had either degraded beyond recognition or simply never contained the biological markers or digital imprints that modern forensics required. Witnesses from the initial investigation were now elderly, their memories faded, or tragically had passed away, taking their potential insights with them. The very passage of time, which usually aids in the slow unraveling of secrets, only fortified the walls around Ilara Vance's absence. And while the FBI battled its professional frustrations, the true, profound impact of this unsolved case continued to ripple outward. Ilara Vance's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Vance, lived out their remaining years in Havenwood, forever trapped in a limbo of uncertainty. Every passing car, every ring of the telephone held a fragile hope that was inevitably dashed. Their home, once filled with the warmth of a daughter's visits, became a silent monument to an enduring question mark. Their grief was not the sharp, finite pain of a confirmed loss, but a dull, ceaseless ache, a wound that could never scab over because the cause, the closure, remained perpetually out of reach. Their story is a stark reminder that cold cases are not merely files, but perpetual heartbreaks, legacies of unanswered prayers. Over the decades, as official avenues hit their limits, other explanations began to emerge, whispered in online forums and debated in obscure publications. Some hinted at a connection to Ilara's cutting-edge astrophysical research, suggesting she stumbled upon something so profoundly significant, perhaps even extraterrestrial, that an unnamed agency, or even an unknown intelligence, orchestrated her flawless removal. Others speculated on the existence of a highly organized, completely undetectable criminal enterprise, a phantom group capable of eliminating individuals without a trace. There were even theories of a personal vendetta by an individual with an almost supernatural ability to bypass detection, a person so deeply disturbed and meticulous that they simply transcended conventional capture. While these theories added layers to the enduring mythos of the case, offering imaginative attempts to fill the void, they never garnered any concrete support from the rigorous evidence-based scrutiny of the FBI. They remained and remain in the realm of profound speculation, underscoring the desperate human need for an explanation, any explanation, in the face of absolute mystery. Today, the file on Ilara Vance resides within the FBI's Unidentified Persons and Cold Case Investigations Unit. It is still active, perpetually open. Agents, many of whom were children when Ilara vanished, regularly revisit the case, hoping that some fresh pair of eyes, some new pattern recognition, or perhaps a sudden, unexpected confession might finally illuminate the darkness. Agent Rebecca Thorne, a young, keen investigator, recently commented on the Vance case. "It's a ghost in the system. Every time we open that file, it's a stark reminder of what we don't know. It tells us that even with all our tools, all our intelligence, there are some boundaries we just haven't crossed yet." This case is different. It doesn't just represent an unsolved crime, it represents an intellectual defeat on a profound level. It is the perpetrator or the event that left no signature, no error, no footprint for the most advanced trackers to follow. It speaks to a level of calculated precision, or perhaps sheer, astonishing luck, that challenges the very foundation of investigative work. It gnaws at the agents not simply because a life was lost without justice, but because the how and the why are completely, unsettlingly absent. It suggests the terrifying possibility that some individuals, or some forces, can operate with absolute impunity, existing entirely outside the reach of the law, beyond the grasp of even the most dedicated minds. The unsettling reality of Ilara Vance's disappearance is that the answers remain out there, somewhere, known only to a precious few, or perhaps to no one at all. The truth is still held captive, perhaps by a brilliant, meticulous individual who executed the impossible, or perhaps by a force that remains utterly beyond our current comprehension. And as long as that truth remains concealed, Ilara Vance's case will continue its quiet, persistent work, a silent, enduring testament to the limits of human knowledge, forever haunting the very institution dedicated to unveiling such secrets. The disappearance of Dr. Alara Vance from her quiet cottage in Havenwood, Maine on October 17, 1978, remains one of the most perplexing and enduring cases in the annals of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We are left with a perfectly undisturbed scene, devoid of evidence. We confront a cryptic postcard, sent years later, hinting at a secret knowledge only a few could possess. And we grapple with a coded message, left behind, that continues to defy all attempts at decipherment by the most brilliant minds. Alara Vance, a brilliant young woman with a future as vast as the universe she studied, vanished without a trace, leaving behind only a profound, echoing void that time has only amplified. This case, above almost any other, forces us to confront uncomfortable truths, not just about the potential for extreme human malice, but about the very boundaries of our understanding of the world itself. What does it truly signify when even the most sophisticated investigative apparatus on Earth, equipped with unparalleled resources and an unwavering dedication to justice, encounters an event that simply refuses to conform to any known pattern, any logical sequence, any human explanation? Does it speak to an unimaginable level of planning and execution by an individual or a group, operating with absolute precision and an uncanny ability for invisibility, leaving no signature, no error, no footprint for the most advanced trackers to follow? Or does it hint at a deeper, more fundamental aspect of reality, suggesting that some events, for reasons beyond our current comprehension, are simply destined to remain utterly impenetrable enigmas? The saga of Alara Vance compels us to question what we truly know about the hidden currents beneath the surface of everyday life. It makes us wonder about the forces that move unseen, the secrets that remain perfectly guarded, and the inherent limitations of human knowledge when confronted with something truly exceptional in its absence. It challenges the very foundation of our belief in order, in cause and effect, in the idea that every question must, eventually, yield an answer. The legacy of Alara Vance, therefore, is far more than just a cold file number gathering dust. It is a persistent challenge. It is a testament to the fact that some mysteries are not meant to be solved, but rather to persist as existential questions, to stand as a silent, unwavering critique to our certainty, a stark reminder of the unknown. It is an enduring whisper in the corridors of justice, a constant presence that underscores how even in an age of advanced forensics, digital records, and boundless information, there exists a shadow where truth cannot penetrate. And in that profound shadow, the case of Alara Vance continues its quiet, relentless work, perpetually haunting the FBI to this very day, a testament to an unanswered call echoing through time. Now we turn to you, our dedicated audience. After immersing yourself in the profound depths of this case, what are your most compelling theories on Alara Vance's disappearance? Do you believe she walked away of her own volition, leaving behind meticulously placed breadcrumbs? Or was she taken by an unseen hand, a master of deception whose identity remains perfectly concealed? Do you have an interpretation for the cryptic postcard, or perhaps an idea of how to approach the impossible coded message she left behind? We invite you to share your insights, your most imaginative solutions, your questions, and your profound perspectives in the comments section below. Every viewpoint, every thoughtful contribution adds another crucial facet to this complex, enduring mystery, helping us all collectively grapple with its unsettling questions. If you found yourself as captivated and deeply unsettled by this chilling exploration of the unknown as we are, please consider taking a moment to give this video a like. Your engagement helps us continue to bring these intricate stories to light and explore the boundaries of human understanding. And if this journey into the profound unexplained has resonated with you, and you wish to continue exploring the cases that defy explanation and the stories that linger long after the headlines fade, remember to subscribe to our channel. Make sure you activate that notification bell so you don't miss our next investigation, where we delve into another remarkable enigma. Next time, we unravel the perplexing and equally captivating tale of the Phantom of the Opera House, a century of disappearances. A story that explores a series of vanishings linked by an eerie theatrical theme across generations. Thank you for joining us on this extended journey into the profound unknown, and for daring to contemplate the questions that even the most brilliant minds cannot answer.